So what I want to do today is to talk about a revolution that's occurring and that you are a part of. Though you might not know it, you are. And also in that process, tell you a little bit about what we know from a developmental perspective, because I am primarily a developmental psychologist. All right, so is this clear enough to be able to read? Or do we need darker? So this is part of the generational differences in attitude. So just take a look at this. So this is in 2003, a decade ago. This is in support of marriage equality. We don't like to call it same-sex marriage, we like to call it marriage equality. And look what you're not up here yet because we don't have a name for you yet. But those your older brothers and sisters are part of the millennial generation, and look at their support for marriage equality. It has skyrocketed in the last decade, so that 70%. Now your generation is up right now to about 82%. So you have even surpassed those just a few years older than you in terms of marriage equality. In fact, it's not an issue. However, it is an issue for those who are older. Maybe this is where your parents are, maybe this is where your grandparents are, but you can see clearly there's an age difference in the support of marriage equality. And I could give you anything. I could give you military, I could give you, is homosexuality morally good? And all the stats mirror this. That's not to say it's 100%, but clearly there's things going on. Now, why? This is a problem for developmental psychologists, as we really can't pinpoint exactly what it is that is making a difference in these kinds of attitudes that you now have towards not only sexual diversity, but also gender diversity. Whether or not there are trans people in your school, there has to be. They're all over the school system. And so we're talking about both sexual and gender diversity, but I'm going to talk primarily about sexual diversity. So these are people that you may be familiar with who have really begun to sort of change our cultural understanding about sexual diversity. Now, there are stereotypes out there. And this is one. However, he, as well as many people your age, have changed those stereotypes. This is probably one of the best, well, I'll just say the best free skier in the world. And he just came out as gay a couple of days ago. And he is as masculine, as athletic, as daring as any guy could possibly be. And he says, and by the way, I'm gay. Here's another stereotype of lesbians, which I'm not saying they don't exist. However, Ellen Page is quite a different kind of portrayal of what it means to be a woman attracted to other women. And she has recently come out, maybe a week, maybe two ago, and it's just like you have to fall in love with her, and somehow in that process, your generation has come to really admit it. Now, I can't get anyone post Lady Gaga in terms of bisexuality, but she certainly has helped to sort of publicize this whole issue. There are male athletes and rap singers of all nationalities and of all sports who are beginning to come out, and this has also begun to change the face of America and your attitudes as well. Even Mormons can be gay and out, which is something that is fairly new as well. And what's also interesting to me is that with this increased sort of visibility, what has changed is that we no longer talk about same-sex love as much, or same-sex sex, but we now are talking about same-sex love, because this is a very critical aspect of what it means to be a sexual and romantic person. So we talk about sexual orientation, and we talk about romantic orientation. Now, let me just tell you that you need not necessarily be congruent in those. I interviewed a guy who is deeply, deeply in love with women, but he can only masturbate to gay porn. I also have the opposite, a very well-known athlete at Cornell who is madly in love with women, but he keeps falling in love with guys. So once again, there's a complexity that we're just beginning to understand. And if any of you are in the future doing research in this area, it is a fascinating area. That is, whether or not who you fall in love with and who you want to have sex with is the same gender or very different genders or all genders combined, or gender doesn't matter. All right? It can get very complex. Also, you don't have to be real to be gay. Increasing a number of characters on TV, comic books, games, and so forth are coming out as gay. But in reality, gay people are just like normal. And that might seem like shocking to your grandparents or your parents, but in your generation, this is like a non-issue for you and probably rather boring aspect of what it is. So, what is also important in terms of research, and I think this is important because I think we get some kind of a misperception. So there are no differences by sexual orientation, whether you're gay, straight, bi, or whatever, or mostly straight, in terms of how close you are to your parents. You love your parents, they love you. You have the same number of friends, you're just as close to your friends. You are just as popular as straight. So whether you're straight or gay, doesn't matter. Some high schools have recently voted, and I'm not clear about Ithaca High, sometimes the cutest couple for the senior year is a same-sex couple. So that, once again, illustrates how far we've come. Also, you can't tell a gay or straight person by their personality. There's no differences. And in terms of positive health, your self-esteem, your sense of mastery of the universe, of your life, and well-being, there's no difference. There's a myth about gay youth suicidality, and it is a gay myth. It is a myth that is, we know from research, is not true. All right. That's the big picture. Now let's get down to what we know developmentally. How is it that a baby it comes to recognize the self as something different? So the first developmental milestones that we sort of look at is what's called feeling different. And a lot of people that I've interviewed said, you know, I felt different from a very early age, from very first memories. I just knew that I was somehow different from other people. Now, a lot of people, perhaps many of you, also feel different or out of sync or not just like everyone else. That's fairly common, but gay people report this. Many more report this. What is it? Well, it's this very real sense from a very early age of not quite fitting in. Now, maybe they feel special or maybe they feel weird, but it's just not quite fitting into the way everybody else around them seems to be. What is it? Well, there's a feeling that either you are not acting like a girl is supposed to act, that is, you feel maybe a little bit on the tomboyish side, to use an old term. You feel maybe a little bit more masculine, maybe a little bit more assertive. And if you're a guy, maybe you feel a little bit more artistic or creative, or not quite acting like a typical boy. But what's important is the sex aspect. You feel specialness around other boys or other girls. And you don't understand what's going on. You just know there's something going on inside of you that is just a little bit different than your friends and your peers. Now, you may hope, well, just wait till puberty and then I'll be just like everybody else. The answer is no, you won't. But you think you might at that young age. So the second developmental milestone that we look at frequently is same-sex attractions. That is, when do you recognize that you have attractions for the same sex? Now, I could ask those of you who happen to be straight here, or mostly straight, when were you aware that you were first attracted to the opposite sex? And you would probably say, I don't know, I've always been. Same way with gay people as well. But what's different here now is that at the age of 8 or 9, which is third grade, okay, third grade on average, some earlier, some later, by third grade, it's like, aha, these are sexual or romantic attractions to the same sex. So once again, this is not a puberty thing. This is something very likely you were born with, or that you came out of the womb already created as a gay person. All you have to do is to recognize it and to understand it. There is no scientific evidence to illustrate or that demonstrates that your sexuality, whether you're gay, straight, bi, or wherever you are, is given to you, is that you acquire through parents or whatever. It's genetic, or it's something that happens before you were born. So, what is it that gay people remember as that first memory of same-sex attractions? Emotional attachment or a crush. So that girls remember, oh my gosh, I fell in love with my kindergarten teacher. Okay? The way she combed my hair, I just got so excited. So excited. By the way, these are real stories that people have told me in interviews. Or a guy will say, you know, I just got so attached to my next door neighbor. I didn't understand it or what, I just wanted to be around him all the time. Sexual thoughts. Guy goes into the locker. He doesn't know why, but he gets an excitement by going into the locker. He doesn't want to leave the locker. Okay? The same thing with a woman. She dreams about a woman and she feels all aroused and just doesn't quite understand it at the time. Or there's a fascination with the same-sex people, or, not uncommonly, there's same-sex behavior. Most of the first partners in childhood of a guy or a girl who eventually will be gay is straight. So we thank you who are straight for providing this sexual opportunity to our gay and lesbian young people. And by the way, most of those straight people stay straight. So the early sexual activity, pattern, behavior didn't make them anything other than what they have grown up to be. Another is just admiring the physical beauty of the opposite sex, or the same sex. All right, in terms of attraction then, what is it that the young person feels? Feels warmth and excitement, on edge, understands, even at that young age, that this is not something to be shared, that this is somehow not to be told to parents. A boy doesn't go to his parents and say, oh my God, I just fell in love with my best friend. Though I will tell you, I do know an 8-year-old boy who did tell his father that. And that person is now gay, but he knew it at 8, and fortunately had the kind of relationship with his father that he could say, Dad, I think I'm in love. He didn't say, I'm gay. He didn't really know what that term meant, but he knew something important. He knew he needs to keep it secretive. Both girls and boys know this is not something you should share, and some actually feel like, oh, all boys and all girls must feel this way. And what happens with puberty is these feelings that have been there for so long becomes eroticized. And now they become pictures or fantasies for masturbation or actual sexual encounters. So they are there, but it's not until puberty. Puberty doesn't create your sexuality, it simply amplifies what is already there. So any attempt to keep having opposite sex that will cure me, doesn't work. But speaking of same-sex behavior, when do gay people have sex? First sex averages 14 to 16. That's the same as for straight youth. Now, I'm not talking about sexual intercourse here in most cases, but at least genital contact. Same age as straight kids. And once again, we have straight youth to thank for some of that. There's been a revolution for girls, which is that now young girls, young lesbians or bisexual women, are having sex at about the same time as boys. And this is especially true in urban areas. So young women are catching up, and we see this also on the heterosexual side in terms of first sex. It's now just about equal, whereas before there's this huge discrepancy, boys having a much earlier onset of sex than girls. It's not so true anymore. Who are they having sex with? Their friends, their partners, peers. They're not going out to Cornell or to the internet and finding older people or whatever. No, they're having sex with their peers. Once again, the same as with straight youth. So where do they find their partners? Well, they find them the same place those of you who are straight find your partners, all right? Through dates, class, biology class, AP psychology classes, various kinds of hookups, the internet, various kinds of, I won't tell you what the apps are, you know them yourself. So they find their first sexual partners in an identical way. How do they feel? A lot of pleasure, maybe some guilt. They're afraid they might get caught. What if a parent comes in on me, goes down to the basement, and catches us? Or they might fear there'll be some religious repercussions of this. Now, gay people frequently also have sex with the opposite sex. And it's at the same time as straight people, once again. So 50% of gay boys have said they've had sex with a girl. It's usually not intercourse. And 80% of girls, lesbian girls, will say they've had sex with a guy. So it's not that we haven't tried it and didn't like it, all right? Rather, we tried it, and what turns out is it's just not quite as thrilling for us. So it's not as intimate, it's not as erotic. And I think that can be sort of important. So again, the partners are peers, they're usually dating. You find a gay guy and a straight woman, or a lesbian woman and a straight guy dating. And why do they have sex? Well, it's expected. That's what you do if you're dating someone. And frequently, it's the other partner who initiates the sex. Okay, it's the straight partner who initiates the sex because, once again, they are more motivated, while the same-sex person goes, I could do without it, but if she really wants it or he really wants it, then okay, I'll do that. Yeah, we won't cover that. All right, coming out to self, average age gets younger and younger and younger and younger. It's no longer surprising to find a 10-year-old coming out and claiming his or her sexuality. It is occurring. Whether this whole developmental process occurs one day, okay, you say to myself, oh, I'm gay. I tell my best friend, I'll tell my family, I'll come out on Facebook, and I think I'll start dating my best friend. Now, that could be a day, not usually, could be a decade, or it could be a lifetime. Not so long ago, I had a 70-year-old Cornell professor call me and say, I'm about to retire from Cornell, and I just have to tell you, because I have to tell someone I'm gay. And I don't want my wife or my 5 children to know that. But I just have to tell someone. So you can prolong this as long as you want, but it doesn't help in the sense of going away. So there's a lot of how long it takes you to celebrate, to accept your same-sex sexuality. It can vary. Now, in the past, it used to be that a lot of gay and lesbian people first had to have sex before they really knew that they are gay or lesbian. That's no longer the case. Now, most identify first as gay, lesbian, or bisexual, and then have sex not as a confirmation that, oh, that's what I am, but as an expression of what they've already known to be true. So they're not having wild sex to figure something out. They've already figured it out. They may still be having wild sex, but they know what they're doing. All right, coming out to others, it's occurring earlier and earlier and earlier. And it's usually a best friend, almost always a best friend. And the best friend is almost always extremely supportive. In fact, some of you may have been the first person that someone came out to. And if so, you should feel quite honored, because it's a matter of trust that they felt in you to be able to come out to you. Increasingly, there are other LGBT youth who are able to come out to. The first person is almost never a parent, which is really unfortunate, I think, in some ways, because parents are supposed to be there for you. But you don't tell a parent, you seldom tell a sibling first, you certainly don't tell your grandparents or extended family members first. but it's usually a best friend. Now, many gay people fear that they will lose friends once they come out. Not true. And I've already indicated that they are just as popular, have just as many friends. But what is different about gay people is they tend to have more diversified friendships. So gay and lesbian youth are more likely to accept people other than themselves in terms of their ethnicity. So they're more likely to have someone from another ethnicity, from another nationality. They're more likely to have people who are not accepted in school. They're more likely to befriend the reject, the weird, the overweight, the weird personality. Why? Because they know what it's like to feel out of sync or different from other people. Now, I happen to think this is a really excellent contribution that they can add to schools. All right, romantic relationships, very big, very strong desire. Very few find them in high school, though some do, and that's great. Some invite their boyfriend to a prom, and that's increasingly allowable in schools today, though not in certain parts of the country. However, most do wait until college. They're away from home. They go home for Thanksgiving break. They bring someone special. They sit down for Thanksgiving dinner, and they say, oh, Mom, Dad, this is Jeff or Pam, and we're boyfriend or girlfriend. And the family goes, oh, okay. I guess that means you're not straight. So it is happening, and these breaks for college are for a purpose. They're for you to go home and tell your parents something you've always wanted to tell them, but didn't when you were living there. Of course, you got to make sure they're going to continue paying for your college, of course. So many want a romantic relationship. Many, actually, if you gave them a choice, would you rather have sex or love? They pick love. And gay people are actually rather traditional. They would like to have a monogamous, long-term relationship. But they're the only ones. They say, no one else wants to have such a relationship. They're wrong. All right, I think I'm over.
We're leaving at 1.
Okay. All right, so just coming out to parents, which is always the fun part, sort of. All right, so some never come out to parents, some come out early. Many parents, especially the mother, suspects. And so the mother might scream, yell, and whatever, and then a month later you go, Mom, you've known that. She says, I know. Okay, but she had to somehow react hysterically. That's her role. And this is what the research is actually finding, is that mothers are far more likely to react emotionally to the news. Fathers, oh, okay, good to know. Again, parents are very seldom the first to know. Mothers almost always know before fathers. Big surprise there in terms of families. And this is now the way to come out to parents. All right? I just cannot believe how frequently, you tell someone you should talk to them face to face or send them an email or whatever. No way. Text is the method of choice. So if you're a parent, I say you might not always want to look at your text. Grandparents, never. You're never going to tell your grandparents or whatever. They're the last to be told. All right, so why come out to Mom? Well, I'm close to Mom. She's the one who always knows me, or she asks. This is not uncommon that mothers will say, isn't there something you want to tell me? And they go, well, since you've asked. Dad, well, you don't tell Dad, Mom tells Dad. And then Dad goes, okay. And then later he acknowledges that. Or you sort of say, I've done stories for the Washington Post. I've come out to my school and so forth, and to my team members. Maybe I should tell Dad as well. It's time to tell him. Why not to tell? Well, Mom, she's going through a lot in her life right now. I don't want to add an extra burden to her life, so I'll just wait until she's in a better place. Or the fear of how she's going to react emotionally to the thing. Dad, well, we're not close, so why tell him? I will tell you that these parental data are really, really sad, and I hope that your families will correct all of this in the future. But this is at least past research would indicate this. So thanks.